Hi, welcome to Opsrace training program, and we were discussing about APIs or REST API. Today we'll talk about Swagger, who's the big advocate for the open API and the contract negotiation. This also helps a lot of frameworks to automatically generate the documentation of the API. You don't have to do anything. It will just look up for your controllers, and from the controller it will generate this API. So I have one REST controller called car controller, and it just passed it and generated all the URL that I'm supporting in this specific controller. So we can see get, method, put, delete, patch, and then get all and post for creating. So these are couple of endpoints which are necessary for a mature REST API. There are different maturity level. We will talk about that, but these are the minimum URL that we have to provide for the CRUD operation. If we want to get all, if we want to get specific, if we want to update, if we want to delete, or if we want to partially update certain field. So this I just have added the dependency in the Spring Boot project, and it automatically generates this documentation. You can also annotate your method to have more description on it. So it's telling us like it's a mandatory field. If we use that, then it will return us the car. We can use here the put method. It is telling us like car ID is mandatory, and you can pass a request body which may contain an ID, registration number, make, model, and features string. And similarly for the delete, so it has generated the documentation for all the API by reading my method. And I just have to add just single dependency here, Spring Boot dependency. Here is my car controller. Yeah, so we can see here I have just my annotated REST controller with the request mapping, and then I have created get method, post method, put method, and then patch method. So these are couple of function, and then we have delete and couple of other methods. So Swagger just read all this controllers using reflection or some other technique in order to get what are different URL that this controller is providing and how it is using. I want to try it out. I will just pass the car ID 1, execute this, and it returned me a car with the response body and with the response header. This is our status. This is just a sample, like it can return 200. And if you have a proper documentation, then you will also specify other type of error. So from here you can see what this API is about, what it is returning. But as a QA, quality assurance engineer, you will ask the developer, are you going to throw me any 400 error, any 404 error, or any 403 error? There would be any other errors. So if they will throw those errors, those should be mentioned here in the API. Okay, so if we look at another example here, it is telling us like I would be returning 200 okay, 400 bad, 401. So it's telling that these API would throw some error, those would be in this category, and that's what they are meant. If we go down here, we can see not only they have provided the URL, also provided a short description like what will happen if we open this. So again it's telling me the parameter, the response code 200, and when the response is 200, how the body will look like, what would be the data. You can click here for schema to view a better version, and if you want to see the JSON, you can see here. So 200, then it says 400 I will throw. For instance, when a required field is not specified, if it is unauthorized, it will throw 401, it will throw 403, forbidden, and some semantic errors. And if it throws 422 HTTP status code, then this will be the body of the your HTTP response. Okay, for the Swagger and the Spring Boot, it's really simple. You just type Swagger UI and x.html, it will give you this interface. And it is also giving you to option to interact with the real running instance. We need to ensure that this Swagger documentation is only available on the staging or pre-prod infrastructure and should be disabled on the production. So it's really simple. There are techniques where you can define this documentation should only be available in the pre-prod environment. You may need to add the authentication if your APIs are protected, so you may need to add that authentication, and whenever you have to call the API, you have to provide that authentication. So this is just one idea. I hope so. Swagger provide lots and lots of integration with lots of frameworks, different programming languages it support. I'm sure you'll find in one of your programming languages. This is currently the example of Java. So here is the Swagger editor where you can just define your API. So if you can use this editor to write down your contract. So when the backend developer, front end developers, QAs, they are sitting together, they can use this tool to design their APIs, how the APIs will look like, what would be the parameter, what are the required parameter, what are the optional parameter, how the error will look like. So we can do everything based on that. So this uses this YAML format. By using that, and you can create your APIs. We'll cover this in some other session. And similarly, you can generate your code. So you can generate your code for Go server, Inflector, Java. There are different form of Java's APIs frameworks. You can generate it for Kotlin, Node.js, Python, Flask, Spring. I'm sad PHP is not there. So it will generate server side code for the API. So all the boilerplate code be generated for you. Let's say if we click on here. Okay, so it has generated the code base for this. Similarly, we can generate the code for the client who will be interacting with these API. I can see here PHP. So let's use this and see what it generates. So here we see the PHP. Okay, yeah. Okay, these are all the API. Okay, so it has generated API for us, so that we can use this user API to interact with that class. So you will be just calling this method create user. It will automatically make the HTTP request. We will call the create user with HTTP info. So the code for the communication with the API has been written by PHP already. Okay, I guess that's it for today. I hope you like this session. See you in the next lecture.